So today we are going to discuss some of the tools that you can use to ease your work, and that is the data science and machine learning work. And the first tool that you can use is Colab. And already you know Colab and how you can access Colab. So this is one of the notebooks you can use. So for example, if you have a PC that has inferior resources. So resources that won't help you run big chunks of code. So you can switch to Colab, which is an online platform. And then another thing you can use is the Anaconda Cloud. And Anaconda Cloud allows you to code Python to write Jupyter notebooks online. So as that is loading, we'll look for another tool. Another tool that I'll show you, and it's free, is something called, I think, Casper AI. So this should be a tool. I'm not sure. So there is a code completer that you can use to complete your code. And yeah, so I'll try get that and then I'll share with you. Another thing you can use is VS Code. And for VS Code, we have two things. So we have GitHub Copilot. So here on the extension parts, you can see we have the GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is a paid product. And if you go to GitHub, you'll see, and if you search for GitHub Copilot, we have that here. So there should be a page for that, or let me Google that. So this is GitHub Copilot. So the world most widely adopted AI developers tool. So it will help you in writing data science code. So for example, here in my PC, I can maybe open notebooks, and as you usually see, when I type in my code, they get completed as fast as I start typing them. So the tool that I'm using for that is this GitHub Copilot. And then we have Copilot Chat. And for Copilot Chat, I can do anything with it. So for example, I can ask a question like, share a template for fitting and evaluating a linear regression model. And if I click on enter, then I'll get that code. So here you can see, here is a template for doing that. So what I'm trying to show you guys today is, apart from learning what we are learning in class today, so you don't have to focus much on maybe doing these things on your own. So you should leverage the AI tools that are out there to help you in what you are doing. So for example, this is code that has been generated for me here instantly. Yes, anyone without questions? Okay, so I see, Heini, you've suggested that we have DeepScan. Yeah, so you can also check out DeepScan. So it's used, let's see what it is used for. Okay, so you can use it to inspect your code and maybe check for highlighting issues, as you can see here. Yeah, so that's one of the extensions. So for me, the extensions that I've installed here are these. So the two most important ones are GitHub Copilot Chat and GitHub Copilot. And then another one that you can use, so which, for example, it's in preview right now, is the Data Wrangler that is there for GitHub. And what Data Wrangler does is it assists you in analyzing data, or let's say not analyzing data, but to it assists you in cleaning your data fast. So for example, I'll open one of the class tasks that we did. So we'll click on open folder, then I'll go to ML classes, then I'll take the ML day folder. And here, for example, where we have linear regression. So if I download my data, so for example, if I get the tips data set, so if I run that, so SNS is not defined. Let me run the importations first. So that should import my data. And then I guess once the tips dataset has been downloaded, so the data wrangler extension will be activated. So once I'm able to see the tips dataset, then I can be able to like customize this data using this extension. So it's running. Let's give it some time and then we can confirm. And the good thing is Data Wrangler is free. So things that we've been doing. So for example, here, data encoding that we've been doing using importations from Python. You can do it using these. You can do it using these extensions from Visual Studio Code. Okay, so as that is running, I'm going to show you something else. So for today, the main thing that I wanted us to look at was how can we analyze our data without maybe having to type in any code ourselves. So how can you do that? And thing is, someone who is doing that will replace someone who is typing in codes. So what I'm teaching you here is just for your understanding, like how does the code work, so that in cases whereby an individual who has the know-how as to how the code runs is needed, you will be able to like understand how maybe the data was analyzed and how maybe you can customize the codes that are being created by the AI system. So let's look at this example first before we can proceed on to the next step. So here you can see once I've loaded my data, the tips data set, you can see I have this part which says launch data wrangler. So if I launch that, so here you can see operations, here you can see the data summary, and here you can see the cleaning steps. So instead of me typing in any code, so this extension will do that for me. So for example, here you can see I've got all columns. I can see their distribution. So I can see also if it's categorical or numeric. Okay, I can do the cleaning steps here. I can see, you see here we have the new operation part. I can choose an operation, and what we can do is we can drop duplicate rows, so we can do things like that. We can drop missing values, we can fill in missing values. So here you can see we select a column that we want to fill in missing values, and this extension generates the code that will replace those missing values for us, so we don't actually have to type in that code. Okay, then I'll click on discard. Another thing is you can click on the format, so you can capitalize first letters, so you can do all that formatting. Then here you see we have numeric, you can round down, you can scale. Then we have schema. Then you can see you have change column type. So for example, I can pick the sex column, and after picking the sex column, I can convert it to any column types that we have here. So for example, I can change it to int64, but that won't be applicable because this is a string column. Okay, so I'll discard. Then we can drop columns, we can rename column, we can select columns that we need. So instead of us having to like do the data wrangling using code, we can use this extension to do that. So that's it for VS Code. So for VS Code, we've looked at GitHub Copilot, so which is for code completion. Then GitHub Copilot Chat, so which allows you to like chat with GitHub Copilot, and it will give you suggestions and things like on how you can improve your code work. So things like that. So I'll close my VS Code, so we won't be using that for today. And the first thing I'll want us to do is, first of all, get a data set that we will want to use. So what we will be using today is one of these data sets that I want to download here. And I want to find a data set that we can use. So for example, I'll pick the avocado prices data set. Then I'll check the data description. So we have the date column. We have the average price, type, year, region, total volume. Then I think this should be the avocado type, something like that. Then this is the distribution of the data that we have down here and all that. So I'll download this data. So it's 644 KB in size. Let me download it from down here so that I can get the CSV file itself. Then I'll store it in my downloads folder. Once it has been downloaded, I'll rename that dataset. So I'll extract this file. Okay, so I've extracted that file. And what I'll do is I'll open ChatGPT. So what I want to show you today is how you can analyze your data without you having to like type in any code. Then here at the far end, we have, so if you click on explore, we have different GPT models. So what I'll pick is the data analysis GPT model, and you need to be a pro user to use this. So you can sacrifice some cents to ease your work, because as I've said it before, someone using AI will replace people who are not using AI. Then what I'll do is I'll upload my CSV file. So that should be the avocado.csv file here. Then after uploading that file, I'll come back here and then I'll copy maybe the data description. So maybe I'll copy the context here. Then I'll say, this is my data and I want to share a report with my sales company board of directors, something like that. Then I'll say this is so below is the data context. Then what I'll do is I'll paste the data context down here. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll say something like, create a few questions that I can answer from the data before we proceed on to the analysis part. Then I'll click on enter. So I won't be typing in any codes for today. So here you can see price trends, geographical variations, size and type, volume and demand, seasonal effect, but the data hasn't been read in yet. Okay. So we'll see if some of these questions are relevant before we proceed. So these are some of the questions that we've asked. So for example, price trends. So if we check our data, we have here we have the total volume column and we have the average price. So we can use the total volume multiplied by the average price to come up with something like the price trends. Okay, then we have the geographical variations. So do we have a geographical field? So we have the region column, then size and type. So here we have the different types of avocados, so conventional or organic. Then volume and demand. So here we have the total volume column, so that will be relevant. Then seasonal effect. So do we have the date column? Yeah, so we have the date column. So we have to also check the seasonal effects. Then affordability index. So I think affordability index will come into consideration using the total volume, region, and average price column. Then market dynamics. So how has the market share changed? Consumer behavior. So things like that. Then forecast. So these questions will help in creating a structural report that can provide variable insights to your sales company board of directors. Shall we proceed? Yes, so I'll click on yes, and then we will proceed on with the data analysis part. So first of all, our data will be loaded and the analysis has started. So remember, in data analysis, the first step is always to check the kind of data you have. And as you can see, this is what is happening here. So we've loaded the data and here we are checking the data columns that we have here. So we have the date column, date of observation, average price, the average price of an avocado, then total volume and all those columns. Then you can see here we have a summary. So with this data, we can start analyzing it to answer the questions we've outlined. So let's begin with the first question regarding the price trends over time. We can plot the average price of avocados over the date periods. So if you want to see the code, you can click on this code part down here and you can view the code that was generated. So you can see this is Python code. So what I'll do is I'll type in proceed and we will proceed on with our analysis. So you can see the only paragraph that I typed in lots of words is this part here. And for the second text, I just typed yes. For the third text that I just typed in proceed. And we are continuing on with our analysis. So this is our first plot that has been generated and we can see the price trends over time. And here you can see we have some analysis. So like a rough explanation as to what is seen in this plot. So here we can see the analysis is saying that the line plot above shows the average price of avocados over time with a distinction between conventional and organic types. So you can see we have a plot for conventional avocados and we have a plot for organic ones. Okay, so it appears that there are fluctuations in price throughout the period covered by the data, with some seasonal patterns possibly present as well. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, which is identify the cities or regions that have the lowest avocado prices. Okay, so I'll type in proceed and we will go to the next question. So the good thing is after we've analyzed our data, so after we've got all these reports that we need here, this model can generate for us a summary and export it to a PDF. And we can share this summary with anyone who we want to share it with. Okay. So this is our second plot with the top 10 regions with the lowest avocado prices. So if you want to maybe generate to create a specific question to this part here, you can do so too. So you can customize like these plots here. So you can say something like use same color, things like that. So what I'll do here is I'll click on proceed, and we will go to the next analysis point, which is we could explore the types or sizes of avocados that are more affordable, or we could examine the correlation between volume sold and price. So instead of us doing this, so I'll go back up here to the questions and I'll click on geographic variations, or maybe what I'll do is I'll copy this and say something like, why don't we move on to this? And we will get an analysis based on this avocado affordability index. But we don't have the average income column and we don't have the cost of living columns. So the model is asking if we could have these additional data. Okay, so I'll say I don't have that data. Okay, so after I've mentioned I don't have that data, what I'll do is I'll ask the model to create a forecast model. So I'll say something like, can we create a forecast model to predict future, so maybe to predict future average price. So then I'll say something like use random forest. Use the random forest model and plot actual versus forecast. So something like that. So we've changed the equation that we've asked the model to do. And these are some of the things that it does. So it has outlined the steps that it will follow. So first of all, it's feature engineering, then data splitting, then model training. So data splitting is splitting the data into training and test set, then prediction and evaluation. So it's predicting the actual versus what the model has predicted, then creating visualizations. So visualizations that will compare the actual versus the predicted. So the main thing here is knowing the kind of questions you need to ask these models that you are creating. So you don't have to like type in your codes, but you just have to use tools that are being created for you. So instead of wasting time, maybe typing code for each and everything that you can automate, I will suggest you automate it. And here we can see actual versus predicted. And if we check the code, you can see this is something that we've been doing. So for example, here we are importing train test split. So to split the data into training and test set, then we are importing our model. So in this case, I've specified we use random forest. Then we create our X and Y. So our X is our features, then our Y is our target values. Then data is split into training and test set. Then a model is created and it's fit to the data and we extract the, maybe for example, here we extract the mean absolute error. So to evaluate our model. So here you can see this blue line is the actual and this dotted red line is the predicted value. So it's somehow close to what the data shows. But thing is, this average prediction is somehow condensed. So we don't have these extreme cases where we have spikes up. Yeah, so this is another tool that you can use to help you in analyzing your data and fitting ML models. So the downside to this is not each and every task you will want accomplished will be done by ChatGPT. So I decided to show you guys these tools for today because I believe they will help you a lot in your growth. And if you don't understand anything that we've been doing in class, or if you want to learn something new, you can simply use these tools. So for example, I can click on share the code markdown for the last part and explain each code cell in detail. So if you don't understand what the model here has done, you can ask for an explanation, and you can see here, this is the code that was used, and we are going to get an explanation also. So this is a markdown cell. So I should have specified a code cell because here we won't have the code highlighting, but still it's okay. So here we are going to get the code explanation that we need. So this is the code explanation. So that's the good part about this. Yeah. So I think I've shown you enough for today, and I'll also share links to these tools that I've shown you today, and you can go ahead and try them out. So that's if you get the chance to do so. Yeah. So I would like to stop there for today, not unless you have questions. Anyone with a question?